Yeah, we woke up, we slept in, and I woke up a little later than I meant to.
No, that's
How that
fine,
goes.
man.
Yeah.
I could have slept. I couldn't sleep in because Jamie woke me up at 6:30.
Well, I mean, it's a natural body wake up,
Yeah, like I woke up, but I didn't get up yet, and the
Yeah.
next thing I know, I'm in the shower or whatever, and wife's making breakfast. I'm like, holy crap, it's 11? What the? I stayed up late.
Yeah, I was at making coffee and Jamie was not making breakfast.
That
Yeah, I
son
don't-
of a, she was getting her
You know
eyebrows,
what?
getting her brows
Yeah.
done, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
This
You think
doesn't
all
happen
that, Yeah, I
overnight.
was gonna say, you think that shit's natural? Fuck no, man. That takes work, son.
None of this happens overnight.
Women want to talk about how we what is it, the fakeness, how we want them to be fake and stuff, and then all these filters and stuff now, like you can't even
Yeah.
tell with somebody. You watch those videos where they it shows a girl, like she's showing her face like real like not attractive, and then like
Right.
they do the cut and she's done like 10 pounds of makeup and you're like, what the?
Yeah. What just happened? Talk about magic.
But then
Magic.
but then they want to say like, oh well, this guy is not what. Hey, you know what, if I did everything that you did, I could probably look pretty too.
I tell Heath I do it for him, and he's like, "Oh,
There you
really?
go.
You drop all that money for me?"
Yeah, absolutely, I spend it for you, baby. No, my wife does the same. I tell her, I'm like, honey, you're fine. Like she, carries a compact with her everywhere, and like we'll go somewhere and she'll have to do it in the morning, and then right before we walk into somewhere, I'm like, babe, like it's fine. She's like, no, it's not. I'm like, okay, whatever.
How long have you been in the Navy?
Oh, me blow me life.
I'm Jamie Britt,
And I'm Heath Britt.
and together we are E14. We have 40 years of naval service.
And each week we discuss a potpourri of topics, which we like to call smoke pit topics.
These are real world topics that concern us, our marriage, and our Navy with a sailor twist.
So join us each week.
As we dive into the deep end.
Booyah!
Hey everyone, welcome back to E14 Podcast. I'm Jamie Britt.
And I'm Heath
And
Britt.
together we're E14, and the views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of our own and not the United States Navy or our respective commands.
So you can take it or leave it. Welcome everybody back to E14 Podcast. Today we have a special guest. He is FCAC Brad Dowden. Now I throw the A in there because FCA is basically an FC with the God complex. So he is an agent's
Right.
type. So isn't that right? You kind of got a God complex, Brad?
Yeah. They added the A. The A stands for awesome. So
Okay, that's what I
yeah,
thought.
yeah, that's what it
awesome
is.
FC.
Yeah. that's what it
Welcome
is.
to the show, man.
Yeah, welcome.
Hey man,
welcome.
thank you guys so much for having me, and thank you. You did my show this last Thursday.
Oh, my pleasure, man. It was a blast.
Yeah.
My
you
dog,
were-
I brought my dog with me. She growling at something because she's silly. So I don't think you guys can hear that. But yeah,
You want
it's
to plug that show? That
yeah, absolutely. I run a podcast mine's live. So it's fun. We were talking about it when you were on, right? So
Right.
mine is live every Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's on Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube. It's called Behind the Helm. And although I am a Navy recruiter, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, it's not just about that. It's a full military podcast. I've had people on from the Air Force, Army, and Marine recruiters on with me, people who've retired out of all the branches, people who are getting ready to go into different branches, and people who not necessarily retired but got out, and like what they're doing and how they utilize that. And we really strive to talk about just all the benefits. And I know that you two could definitely probably say this as well. I've been in the Navy 11 years, and doing the podcast for almost a year, we've talked about some benefits where we kind of studied on it to talk about it.
Mhm.
And I've learned, even after 10 years, 11 years of service, I've learned about benefits I didn't even know I had, like
Yeah.
there's so much, and it's more than you can just talk about. So we kind of dive into it a little bit more just to give an insight for people who are either thinking about joining the military, even people like you guys are the sailor's voice. So for people who are in, like I said, I've learned on there, and even people who are retired or got out, because there's still benefits to you, and we tend to forget about it. Like our time is done, and that's it, right?
Yep.
Wrong. Like there's all kinds of benefits that you can do. So again, that's Behind the Helm. Find it, like it, share it, follow it. It's my catchphrase. On Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. We're also on Spotify and stuff like you guys are. But I've been having some issue with that since Petty Officer Levesque left. In fact, Heath, I talked to you about it.
Yeah, we did.
Pulling the audio and getting it edited. So I said to find a program to do that, and then I'm going to try to backlog that and get that up there, because some people would rather do that than do the video. Even though, look, you can pull up the video and just leave it playing. So I try to tell people, but
you can. But I notice sometimes when you're driving and you want to hear it, if your phone closes, after so much time of not touching it, the audio will stop.
Yeah, especially on Facebook. YouTube finally coded whatever where you can do that, where you can back out of it and leave it playing.
Right.
Because I agree with you. You do that on Facebook, you're like trying to just listen to something and you hit your, button to black out your screen and it stops everything. Dang it. I don't want to leave it open. So
yeah,
I agree. And, podcasts are they're just big right now, and people just search for that stuff on those different platforms. And I need to take some time and actually get it up there. I will.
All of them. You need
I
all
will.
of them.
Yeah, I mean, it does help. It does help to be able to get those podcast platforms. I want to add something about your show, Behind the Helm. It's a great show. It's also Indiana's #1 military podcast.
Congratulations.
You're absolutely right.
You
Thank
did it.
Yeah, I did it. Indiana's #1 military podcast. We may be the only one, but that's one of one. One of one is the same as #1 of 50. You know what I'm saying? Like it's
true.
Still #1. So
it's true. And also, I'm a military history or Navy history genius.
Yeah, I mean, so on our show, if you go back and watch it from this last Thursday, and the big thing, the difference between like you guys record and edit, and there may be some mistakes, but live, I make a joke about it. Every episode, I think I have everything figured out, and we've had over the years, we had power go out, we've had internet issues where it disconnects, we've had audio issues all the time, and then I had set something up. So if you guys go watch my show, the bonus content, which you have to watch on video, I challenged Heath for charity, right? We made a donation to Till Valhalla Project, so make sure to check that out. 22 a day. And I had made up, it was from a teacher site, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, right? And did naval history questions. And since you were a senior chief, or still are, I don't want to say were, once a chief, always a chief, right?
Right. That's what they say.
Yeah, so that's what we say. Unless you go officer route, then apparently that doesn't apply to some people.
Then you're a quitter. You're a quitter.
Yeah, a quitter.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. But I pulled some, they were tough. Even you said like, oh man, like these are hard, because I was like, he's a senior chief. Like if I do the normal ones, there's some good ones in there, right? And of course I did it earlier in the day and had it all set up. I'm like, yeah, we're ready to go, man. And it messed up, but you did make it. We did go ahead and it was only up to 100. I can't do 1 million. I'm lucky to do 100, but you got the bonus question for 110. So we made $110 donation to the Till Valhalla Project. So definitely check out Till Valhalla Project. I would encourage everybody to. It's a great cause. So
definitely.
It was fun.
I really like your podcast name. Where'd you come up with that, Behind the Helm?
It's so funny because I was talking to Heath about your guys's, right?
Mhm.
And how I'm so proud and happy that you made chief. Congratulations, by the way. But we were joking about how you probably jinxed yourself because you can't, because you mess up the name. But no, I don't really remember. So our podcast, Petty Officer Levesque, before he left, as a recruiter here, he came here right in the heat of COVID. I mean, I was crushing it, and then I was excited to get somebody new. He comes in in March of 2020, like right when everything closed out. Yeah, so that's all he knew, right? And at the time, everybody was struggling to figure out, okay, well, we have to figure out how to prospect, how to recruit now.
Yeah.
And he had kind of done some podcasts in the past, like did like a sports one and had mentioned it. Like, what if we did a podcast? And I was like, yeah, it's a good idea. You know all about it. Like, and we're talking. And the problem was, and I'm sure you guys have dealt with it, we were talking about it, is the evolution of it. And we're both perfectionists. So we're like, well, we don't have this and we need this and we can't really do it till we have this. And eventually finally we're like, you know what? Like we're overthinking it. Like, let's just do it. So like our very first episode, we didn't have our own Facebook page. We were doing it off of Petty Officer Levesque. We had one directional mic. We were on a couch and it was like out in front of us, like, and these are the type mics you're supposed to be up to, so the sound quality was horrible. We didn't have that. We were using the laptop camera. It was bad. But the information, it was probably one of the best informational shows we ever did. And the name, I think we were just kicking a bunch of stuff around and trying to think of something that was like, we wanted it to be Navy, but not like obnoxiously. And we wanted it to, be different. And I think I had thought of Behind the Helm. I'd wrote a bunch down and he was thinking of some, and we were kicking a bunch back and forth. And we're just like, you know what? Hey, that one's pretty cool. Like, let's roll with that. And it just, once you pick one, you stay with it.
Yeah, you stay with it. Even
and
if you make Chief. You stay with it.
Yeah. And he did like all the graphics and stuff. Like he was the computer technical expert, because I'm the talker. Like a lot of times, like with our command and like people, when they would talk to us about stuff, they would always, say something to me. They assumed that it was me. And I know, like that's Petty Officer Levesque. Like he did so much like on the fly that a lot of times that's why I was talking a lot, because he was fixing stuff as we were going. We ripped an office out in our Muncie office and made it into a studio, but then I moved it over here because the internet, like, is always something, right?
Right.
But like
Back
our
on
logo,
Murphy.
yeah, oh yeah,
Murphy and your stupid law.
Murphy's Law. Anything can't go wrong will. But the border and everything and all the programs that we use and the logo, like he did all that. Like, great guy. And then the gear that we use is all our own. And in fact, it's actually all of it is his, even the laptop that we use. Because my personal laptop, his was a older gaming one that had the processing speed to be able to run everything. And when he moved to San Diego, he left it all for me to use. He said, hey, as long as you're in recruiting, use all this stuff, the mics, our mixer, everything. I said, what do you want me to pay you for? He goes, no, man, like just use it. And then if you're not in recruiting anymore, send it back to me. So, all right. I mean, the dude was the best man in my wedding. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, like we're close. So,
That's awesome.
shout out to him. He's out there in San Diego. He took, where some of those rates, they were given like SRBs, like little bonuses to go back to sea.
Yeah.
He took that and went back. He's an EM. He was a little concerned at first. He approached me about it. He was scared how it would look on him to leave early. But I told him, I said, you're taking an incentive, right?
Yeah.
They're offering it for your rate and you're going back into your rate. That's not a negative, bro.
Not
It's
at
a
all.
good thing.
No.
You're feeling a Navy priority, really.
Yeah. And he was concerned about our recruiting command and how they would look at it. And I said, like I told him, and for any leaders out there, like you need to understand how to talk to each one of your sailors and how to understand what they're trying to do. Because did I know that he absolutely hated recruiting? Yeah, he was good at it, but you got to think the time he was here, like he didn't see recruiting when it was good. Like all he knew was the grind, the horrible, like
rough
COVID.
time.
Yeah, that was it. So to him, it was, even though he was good, it was just a lot. So that's why. But there was that money incentive. I said, so when you talk to the committee, you let them know, like there's this incentive. It's going to better my family, and that's why I want to do it. Don't go to them because they're going to approve it either way. But don't go to them and be like, I hate it here, I want to leave. Like,
right.
do it the right way,
Right.
And
But
he
you
was like,
bring up
okay.
a good point because, I find myself doing this. I'm sure a lot of people do. And it's like when you get ready to do something for yourself, for forward progression, promotion, whatever it may be, you always almost doubt, like, oh my gosh, what are other people going to think about me? Should I take this?
Yeah.
He was literally looking at money, and
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And he was doubting, like, oh, I don't know if who cares what other people think, but we get it in our heads so much when it comes to that.
It's a personal thing, and everybody's different. You get into panic mode or anxiety about what other people or people above you think, and as long as you're doing what you're supposed to do, but it's one of those things that it was wild that he came here and I taught him, and then he left before me, but we still stay in touch, and he's going. It's cool too because he's getting the opportunity. He was originally on a carrier, right? And I know that you've been on a carrier, and then Jamie being AC, like I'm sure you've probably seen some carriers.
No, I've never been.
Jamie's never seen a boat.
Okay,
oh, that's right.
No,
yeah.
Heath. Okay,
you were a
this
reservist
morning,
and stuff, right?
Okay, listen, guys. This morning, Heath is where I was like, hey, can you throw my khakis in the wash for me? And so he was like, yeah.
Yeah, that's right, you housewife.
And I was like, can you remove all my collar devices and stuff?
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, it takes so much time removing your warfare devices that you don't have. And I was like, excuse me. That recruiting cookie is a warfare device because we're out here.
It is.
In the
trenches.
Man, I need to get you the key. There's that fake warfare device. It's the keyboard warrior one.
Yes,
Oh
that is
my
me.
god.
Do you remember all the ribbons they used to make up? Like there was a ribbon that was like shore duty for life ribbon.
Yeah, the skate life ribbon.
Skate life,
yeah.
Now that recruiting cookie is a warfare device.
There's a reason we get SDP. It is arduous duty. But again, check out my show Behind the Helm. I know it was kind of a long tangent, but check it out if you get a chance. It is live. We do some fun stuff. You always comment and watch it later, but live, I love to interact with people, and video is where our bonus content is. We do things like tier lists and games like that. That was the first time we've ever done a charity thing. But that's not always about military. Like during Christmas time, Thanksgiving, we do food tier lists and movie tier lists and music, so fun stuff. Like go and check it out. But we did that for about a year, and it's still going. So
cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the only reason I think you found me, Jamie, is because of that. Hey, you want to do our show? Sure, let's do it. Yeah, us military podcasters got to stick together, especially when you have the number one podcaster in Indiana.
I mean,
that's true. That's a big deal.
Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here first.
You heard it here.
We had the number one podcaster on our show.
We did.
Number one military podcast from Indiana. You got to be very specific. It's a very small niche, but I claim it.
Well, hey, B-Rad. You mind if I call you B-Rad?
Hey, man. Hey, we're old enough that we get that reference and people don't. B-Rad G, Malibu's Most Wanted.
Yes, one of my favorite movies.
Jamie Kennedy's great movie. But no, I got a lot of friends that call me B-Rad. You're fine.
But take me back 10, 11 years. So you're an FCA,
A,
which is a fire controlman Aegis.
FCA. So
what? First of all, so you got some sea time?
I do, and if I take you back 11 years, I actually, man, I should have sent you a picture of it, but I did not join until I was 26. I in high school, I had kind of, tossed around an idea, and Navy was always kind of cool to me, because you see it, and like to me, it was like travel, and in high school, I was an athlete, and then I got out of high school, never joined, and I got a job. I continued to eat like an athlete, but was not working out anymore. So when you have this high caloric intake, what happens? You get fat, and I did. I played music. I was a musician, and in fact, at one point, I was signed on a record label. But I got up to like 310 pounds, right?
Wow.
Shit.
And I look at pictures now, I look older then than I do now. Like, you know, just the eyes, like the sunken eyes, this and that. But I was decently happy. And I just decided one day I was so sick of living paycheck to paycheck, and I was sick of being unhealthy, and I was, I wanted to do something, and I always wanted to join the military. So I'm like, why don't I do that? Like they'll get me in shape. And I walked into a recruiter's office, and it wasn't Navy. It doesn't matter who it was, but I literally had a recruiter look at me and say, "You're too fat. Don't waste my time. Get out." And I'm like, "Ooh, wow, hi, you," because I thought they took anybody. I don't think people realize, and I didn't until I got in, and even more so now as a recruiter. Like, it's not easy to get in the military.
No.
Everybody thinks it is, and I was like, wow. So I had to lose. I weighed 310. My max weight was 201, but we still did a tape, and I actually, my ex-wife was in the Army. I was up at Fort Drum, and there were some great Army recruiters up there that I worked out with, and they didn't care that I was overweight. I went and ran with them every day, and in fact, their first sergeant, I don't know why he wanted to make me his pet project because he come work out with them, and this dude was like super fit, and he always called me Ranger, and he would like come in the Y, and he'd be like, "Hey Ranger, come work out with me today." I'm like, "Oh no," oh no. But I lost a ton of weight. I actually went to MEPS in Syracuse to join the Army. It was the last day of the month. I taped over. I failed out. And in fact, the first sergeant was so mad at the recruiters that they picked me up. I had to go to his office, and he wanted to take me there and talk to me. And, that's how that whole process went. And then I ended up, going through divorce and moving and all this stuff. And out of happenstance, I had a friend that I knew from high school who happened to find me on social media and reached out to me and was talking to me. And I told them that I was joining the military, trying to. And they said, "Oh, are you joining the Navy?" And I said, "Well, no." And they said, "Why? I thought you always talked about that in high school." And I'm actually in the Navy now. And I'm like, "Oh, really? Wow, I didn't know that." They were out in Hawaii. And I said, I just don't think I can. I'm 25. I thought the Navy was an unattainable thing. I thought you had to be like, you just never see it. So I thought that I wasn't going to be able to join. And this friend was like, "Look, man, if you can join the Army, you can join Navy." Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, "Oh, okay." Like, so I went, talked to a Navy recruiter, and, I had lost a few more pounds, and the rest was history. I got down to I think I joined at 226. I had to tape in. I was in depth for 8 months. I joined in April, didn't leave till December. And my goal over that summer was to not have to be taped. And when I got to MEPS to ship to boot camp, I weighed 200. So I had lost over 100 pounds.
Wow.
And went.
You're like the David Goggins of the FC world. He lost 100 pounds.
Don't say that.
He's deployed more than David Goggins, though.
I respect David Goggins for what he did and stuff like that. I just, and hot take. It's annoying. I get it. Like, it's like, I get it, bro. You're better than me. Like, okay. Like, but it's, and I will tell you, I knew Army. I knew MOSs. I knew nothing about the Navy. I didn't know how that process worked. To be honest, I walked in, my recruiter was trash. My Navy recruiter, and I'm not talking bad on Navy. I'm not talking bad on recruiting, but my Navy recruiter was garbage. He was garbage. He didn't teach me anything. He didn't do, we're supposed to learn stuff before we go to boot camp. I didn't learn any of it. Nothing,
Same. I had the same experience.
I went to boot camp not knowing anything, and 11 general orders. We're supposed to memorize them, and it's a big thing. It's a lot. If you would have asked me when I got to boot camp, how many general orders are there, I probably would have looked at you and said, "What's a general order?" Like,
what are you talking about?
Yeah, I knew nothing. But when I went down and talked to the classifiers, they wanted me to, and again, they wanted me to take the NAPT to be a nuke. And I was like, nuke? Like, I was thinking like The Simpsons, like the glowing green ball. I was like, man, Chernobyl, like, I'm good, right? And I sat down with a classifier, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know. I wanted to serve. I wanted to do one term and, say I did it. I said, look, I want something that if I don't stay in is transferable, right? That I can get a job with, and not realizing that everything is. So he's looking, and he's like, well, we have EM, electrician's mate. And before he even went any farther, I'm like, hey, look, I'm absolutely horrified of electricity. So no, like, anybody out there who's ever taken like the 9-volt battery and like stuck your tongue to it, to make sure that it, what I'm talking about? Like,
no, I would never do that. No.
Right. But a lot of people have, what I'm talking about.
I know.
Right. I
sure
have
you
never
have.
done that. I've never done that my whole life. And in fact, like, to even think about doing it, like, I get anxiety. Electricity is not my thing. And then they had talked to me about LS, logistics specialist. They're like, well, you're really good at math. You like math, go LS, and you could be in the mailroom and be everybody's best friend, the way they were describing it. And I just told them straight up, I'm like, look, from the sounds of it, to me, after about a year, I'd hate my life. Like, come to find out, I probably would have. No offense to any LS. For me, it wouldn't have been good. And then they said AECF. So what is that? Advanced Electronics Computing Field. Okay. All right. What is that? And they got some chief on the phone who was talking to me and said, you work on the weapon systems, like the missile systems, and you get to blow shit up. And I'm like, yeah, let's do that. All right. Wasn't explained very well because it's one that splits out. Like, obviously you're an ET, so that's, yeah. And so you go to boot camp, then you go to A school, and in boot camp you find out, are you going to be an ET or an FC? And I wanted to be an FC, and luckily I got that. Went to A school.
It was different. It was different when I was in.
Did you choose, or how did it?
How it worked was you went to boot camp, you went to Tech Corps. Tech Corps, all of AECF went to Tech Corps. It was in Great Lakes.
Before they split you.
Right. And you got to choose, but it depended on your average in Tech Corps. At the time, I didn't want to be an ET because the A school was the longest.
Yeah.
I didn't want to. I was done. I was ready to do some stuff.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I didn't have the grades to back up what I wanted.
Yeah.
So ET was my last choice, and I got ET, which turned out to be really good. It worked out for me. But
yeah, they split you now in boot camp, and then you still go to that basic core. They've changed the name a few times. Yeah. Everybody goes to that. You go to your A school, and then ET and FC is one that really splits out a lot. There's a lot of, so now they're doing it where you pick, but we did kind of a dream sheet, and I wanted to go the Aegis route. I think I had put like AC&T and computer, and I knew I didn't want to go spy. They actually had called me a couple different times with a couple different orders. So I finished really high in the class, and I had the opportunity to turn them down, and I did. And I ended up with display tech. So at the time, it was just FC, right? There was no FCA. That didn't exist. You were Aegis, but you were just FC. So go to Dahlgren. Aegis Display is like the longest school. It was like 8 months. I was there for like 8 months. And towards the end of our school is when that first big government shutdown happened. 2000, what was that? 10?
Yeah.
2011. So we kind of got stuck. Like, we didn't have any orders, right? Because everybody was, furloughed or whatever government wise.
Oh, you're talking about the sequestration. That was.
Yeah, it was all like the civilians.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So they come back, they give us orders, and we got to go in and choose where we wanted to go, right? They brought in the top of the class and down the list, and there were 10 orders. There were 10 of us, and you just chose where you wanted to go. I chose the USS Cole out of Virginia. A lot of history there. The Cole is the one that was bombed. 17 sailors lost their lives. But I chose it not because of the history, but because we kind of got the opportunity to look at their schedule, right? And I knew I wanted to go somewhere that was going to deploy within a year, but not right away, so that I could get there and kind of get my bearings. So that's what I did. And I went there. And while I was on the Cole, when we would take an advancement exam, you just took an FC exam. Every FC, conventional Aegis. We all took the same exam. So you're an Aegis FC, and then you have all these like conventional questions, but same for the conventional guys. Like they're getting all kinds of questions about like computer peripherals and stuff that they don't work on, but then it averages out because they, you know, it's just the way they did it, right? So eventually they came out and said, okay, we're going to actually, they talked about it for a while, we're going to split it. So there will be 2 separate tests. There will be an Aegis test and there will be a conventional test. But before they did that, and we were talking about it before we started, the Navy decided to get rid of our rates. Like we were just going to be NC codes, which is common in every branch. You know, Army, it's their MOS, but you don't call them by their MOS. It's just their rank or their name. Same with every branch, right? We're kind of very unique in the Navy with the history and the way we do things that we call each other by rate. You know, once you make chief, it's normally just chief, you know, senior chief. But if there's multiple, it's like, hey, FCC, you know, ETC, ETCS. The senior chief's way different because there's, you know, but when they did that, I remember people losing their minds, right? Like on the ship, people were absolutely like just tilted. And we had just gotten the coveralls that have like the Velcro leather piece.
The Velcro, it goes over the chest. Yeah.
And we had the press to print them. And it was in the DC shop. I don't know why. I was like one of the only people who knew how to use it. I went down there, and as soon as that nav admin came out, I had pressed, and I still have it here in the office. I pressed one that said PO1. I took the FC1 off of it. It said PO1. And I was walking around the ship, and like people were coming up to me like, oh, you blah, blah, blah. Like they were that's so tilted, just like, oh man, can't believe you're wearing that. I said, hey, look, man, if I'm an FC1 or a PO1, does my pay change? No. I don't care. I don't care. Like, you know, I just liked being that guy. And it was funny. And then they brought him back. So the reason, Jamie, I'd asked you if you were a BM, I don't remember why I thought that, was BM is like the oldest rate in the Navy, right? And oh boy, are they proud of it. And look, it is one of the most traditional rates. You're actually going to learn seamanship. It's great. It's hard work. And some people want that. And it's good. I respect them, especially when you see like a BMC, a BMCS, Master Chief BM, like, you know, that dude is salty. Or dude or chick, you know, dude or lady, politically correct, toaster, whatever, whatever they identify as, you know, a toaster. Whatever. But when they then came back out and released all the rates and said, all right, we messed up, here are your rates back, right? They did it all at once. So I used to mess with the BMs and say, well, what's the oldest rate in the Navy? And they'd be like, oh, BM. No, it's not. It's ABE. What are you talking about? Because when they released it in alphabetical order. I said, so technically,
AB's,
the first one they would have the oldest rate as of right now, because they went away, you know, and oh man, you want to see somebody just
get all red in the face.
Yeah.
The salt starts popping out of their veins.
You know, you brought back so many memories, man, when you start talking about the Cole. I have a relationship with the Cole myself. I was in my second deployment. I'm old as hell, man. I was in my second deployment in 2000. It was a 2000 to 2001 deployment. And we were headed to the Persian Gulf, I think. It's hard to remember. Anyway, I worked a lot. I was at ET, so I was in radio a lot.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah.
I was in radio. They had this secret circuit patched up to the loudspeaker, so you could, you know, they didn't have to listen on the red phone. They could just hear it over the loudspeaker.
The Coke machine.
Yes. The Coke,
black
the
one.
SAS 2112. They have a black and a red. So
right. Yep.
The red, little history there. The red does the. I'm not going to get into it. I can't remember. I'm still like an idiot. But there's a black, there's a bass, a black SAS, and a SAS. Anyway, so they had the speaker up, and it was basically an announcement saying the Cole got hit.
Yeah.
In Yemen. So I'm like, holy shit, right? God, this is crazy. So I go right next door to the ET shop to tell everybody. Of course, I'm going to tell everybody.
Well, yeah.
And before I could get it out of my mouth, CNN was already showing it on TV.
Wow.
That's how
Wow.
That's
fast
very fast.
that the news hit. And
Yeah,
so
because
we
that
had
message in radio, what you're talking about hearing it on that is a secure, it's secure,
It's-
secret.
it
So
was-
the fact that it
at
was
least,
already,
it was at least secret, if not top secret. I can't.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know off the top of my head. And then we went to the IO. We hauled ass to the IO was in Lincoln. We hauled ass to the Indian Ocean and kind of stayed out there.
so with the coal being on there, I had a lot of fun on that ship, getting to do stuff, learning stuff. A destroyer is the smallest ship that we have. It's 525 feet long, 55 feet wide. Once you're in the Navy and you see ships, you're like, yeah, destroyer, it's small. But I will tell you, the first time you go to a destroyer, it's like, wow, like it's big, it's big. And it takes you a minute, it's not a carrier though, but
no.
it does take a minute. And I will tell you a cool story about the coal. Like it was great and bad being on the coal. It was great because we got to do a lot of cool things because we're the coal, right? Like we went to a New York Fleet Week. Now understand, like when this is a jump off of all the global war on terrorism, right? So the coal happens, 9/11 happens. So there's this big link with New York and the coal. We pulled in. Oh my God. Like there were people lining the banks on these rocky banks, just like cheering as the coal's pulling in, for us to do this Fleet Week. And I'm like, oh,
That
this
gave me
is
chills.
this is
Cool.
this is gonna be a good week, boy. And it was amazing. But
Did you pay for a beer the whole time you were there?
No, I didn't pay for anything. And plus we're in our dress whites, and it's weird because everybody says, New Yorkers are so rude, and they might be to tourists, but I tell you what, if you're in dress whites, no. Man, we had people, if you stood there and looked like you didn't know where you're going, they would say, hey, where you trying to get? How can I help you? You let me take a picture with you? I'll get you any way you need to go. And I was, all right, yeah, absolutely, man. And, we were down, the big brass bowl.
Yep.
Yeah, right. They show movies and stuff. Ton of people getting pictures with it. I'm not being racist or anything, but a lot of Asians were there, and they don't get a picture with the head. They get a picture with its balls. Like it's
weird,
right? So we're waiting because we want to get our picture with it because we've never been there. And the security guard sees us, right? And he's like, "You guys with the Navy? You wanted to get your picture? Hold on. Hey, everybody, clear out, clear out. We got Navy coming in here. Get out of the way. Get out." Literally
Like
stopped
rock
everything.
stars, like rock stars.
Yeah. But when we were there, the 9/11 memorial, the museum, had just opened like that week, right? So we're, for lack of a better term, we're partying, right? We're having a great time. We're seeing New York, and this is just, hey, we need to go see this, right? We go, like the endless fountains are, it's so cool. And we're walking around outside, and we want to go inside, and the line is like around the block, right? They see us in uniform, and they're like, hey, come on. They let us skip the line, right?
Wow.
And we're like in good spirits, we're, whatever. And we walk in there, and it was the most sombering thing I had ever done. Because it had just opened, right? There were a lot of family members who had not been there yet, family members of people who had passed. So there were people sitting around in there, like just bawling. And it's real somber, and they have like, it's super cool. Look up pictures of it sometime. If you're ever new, you have to go see it. It is absolutely amazing. And some of the stuff that we have here is actually from that. So the coffee mug I'm drinking out of is actually from the USS Cole. It's stolen from the wardroom.
Nice. Good for you.
Those guys.
And then we did a lot with the firefighters and stuff while we're there. And one of my coins right here is actually this. You can't really tell, but it's stamped WTC. This is from the World Trade Center. A New York firefighter gave me that. I have a DEA coin from there. And then behind me on the wall is my mounted division patch, because I love horses. Me and two other people who were big into horses got with the mounted division. We got to go to their stable, and I got to ride one of their horses, like in my dress
Wow.
whites.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was awesome. But yeah, so being part of the Cole and then coming recruiting, it's such a small world and a small Navy, right? So the IDC, or Independent Duty Corpsman, for anybody who didn't know what that was, on the Cole at the time it got bombed, is actually from Indiana. And
Really?
yeah, and he lives in my AOR. He's out in Jay County. You forgive me, I don't remember his name because everybody just calls him, even now, he's just called Doc, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, right.
And I went to an enlistee breakfast at a high school, and he was there, and somebody said, "Oh, you were on the Cole. This is Doc." And I remember the only thing I asked him was, "So you were the IDC on the Cole when it got bombed?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "How was that?" He said, "Worst damn day of my life."
I can't imagine.
And that's all we taught. I wasn't going to go into any more of it with him, but I asked him, like, can I get a picture with you? Because I just, like, this is right when I came recruit. I just came from the Cole. So I have a picture of me and him, and then I asked his permission to send it to the Cole, and I sent it to the command. I said, "Hey, check this out," and they had posted it. Super cool. Like it, but you want to talk about small world,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And he's super awesome. He works for the county court and does a lot of the veteran advocacy stuff. And he told me a lot. Really good guy. But I think probably the funnest thing, and like you were talking about traveling now, you happen to be out when that happened. And there have been events in history where it kind of, I don't want to say ruins your day, but it kind of slowed down your deployment. Right? Like you said, now we're stuck out to sea. We're not doing because, hey, like, things are happening now. We got to go take care of this. Our number one job is a presence, and that's why we move and pull into places. But something happens, like that stops. So one of the coolest things being on the Cole was being able to do those things. But then sometimes we had to get pulled for stuff that was negative too, because we're the Cole. Like, hey, some admiral's retiring off of this carrier, and he wants a cruiser and a destroyer in the background on the same pier. Well, which destroyer do you think he wants? The Cole.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Yes. So now we have to berth shift and be on the piers with the carriers, which sucked. But, it's just one of those things. Being part of that history is really awesome. And I learned a lot about the Navy and about myself. So, I got to travel a lot. I did 2 deployments, and both were to the Med. The second one, we went up into the Persian Gulf, and we did a lot of passes, escorts, and we did end up getting 2 beer days that deployment. But even that deployment, we still pulled into a lot of ports. There was just 2 different stints where we were doing a lot of escorts. And I will tell you, I've never seen a captain so mad at a supply officer when our first beer day, he messed up the order and didn't order enough beer.
Oh.
And we all got 1
not
beer.
2.
Not 2, 1. But anyway, yeah, the Cole, I loved it. And I did 4.5 on there. So I did see some stuff. I've traveled all over the US. I went to Rhode Island. I've been to, Boston, Massachusetts. I got to go. I'm a baseball fan. Hate the Red Sox. I'm a White Sox fan, but it's Fenway, right? Like I had a chance to go to Fenway.
Yeah.
Go to Fenway. Was on the quarterdeck of the U.S. Constitution, which is so cool. And obviously Virginia, the Carolinas, all over Florida. We even went to a Fleet Week in New Orleans. My first underway ever, we actually went to the Florida Keys just for a fun port, pulled into the Keys. That was my first experience going underway.
I love the Navy.
Yeah, I love the Navy. We did a Fleet Week in New Orleans. We went around Florida and took the Cole, a Navy destroyer, up the Mississippi River.
Nice.
Like,
that's cool.
Yeah, except like when you realize like how big the Mississippi is, you're like, wow. But I think the big reason I joined was the overseas travel, right?
Right.
So in my time, like, and I'm going to say this really fast. I do it in presentations because when people say, "Where have you been?" And some of these I've been twice in 2 deployments, right? This is it. In less than 4.5 years. And like in that 4.5 years, quite honestly, we were tied up to a pier most of the time. Like less than half of that really was underway time. I've been to Iceland, Ireland, Scotland, London, and Plymouth, England, multiple Azore Islands, Portugal, Spain, Italy, Sicily, Greece, Crete, Romania, Bulgaria, Croatia, Turkey, and Israel. I've been down through the Red Sea, stopped at a place in Africa called Djibouti. Don't go there. It was gross. I just like saying Djibouti. And then I've been up into the Persian Gulf and went to Jabali, Bahrain, and Dubai, the richest city in the world. And all of that in less than 4.5 years. You know, and like Israel was, I think we stopped there twice, Romania twice, you know, obviously Spain a couple times, Jabali a couple times, you know, so some of that was twice. And like getting that experience, I'm a huge history guy. I love history. I love it. And I love Europe, and to be able to get to see that stuff and not pay for it. Are you kidding me? Yeah. Like, so it was great. It was great. Did 4.5 there before I came recruiting, and I've been recruiting ever since.
Nice. No. But
yeah,
on those deployments, you were kind of like what, a street magician? Magician?
Not
a musician, but a magician.
Magician. I am.
Magic.
Somebody like D&D magic, or like you making shit disappear magic?
Heck yeah, man. Give me that D20 roll, babe. No, I've never really played D&D. I mean, we had some guys on the ship that did. Boy,
yeah, nukes. We call them nukes.
We didn't have nukes, though. That's what's weird. But I did. So, you know, I have done magic for a long time, like card magic.
Right.
And in fact, that's why this bicycle deck's sitting here. And my cousin is who got me started in it when I was younger. I say younger, I was in my 20s. He is a big dude. We're talking a guy that's like 6'4", 380, was you know, he played football, you know, he was defensive lineman. But he's the sweetest, like funniest guy. And he started getting into card magic. And, you know, somebody that big walks up to you and says, I'm going to show you something. You don't say no. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
And he showed me his card trick one time, and I was just blown away. And I'm like, man, like, Jake, I would love to learn. And I have, believe it or not, I have like really little hands. So I didn't think I could do it. So I wanted to learn how to do like the flash stuff, like, you know, like where they're like doing all these fancy shuffles and not really do the magic part of it. And found out that was actually way harder. And my cousin started teaching me some stuff, right? And it just became something that I did for fun, and I would do at parties and go out to bars and do it. And you know, the absolute two best people, and I say this, and this is 100% true. The two best people to do magic tricks, card tricks to, are African American males and drunk white girls. Those two people will give you the best reactions most of the time. Generally. So I would do that. Like my cousin he told me that he would go to Foot Locker to do magic tricks all the time, because that's where you would get the best reactions. And I'm like, that's hilarious. And what you end up learning is that what somebody finds amazing isn't that amazing sometimes. Right. It really kind of ruins it. Like once you learn how things are done, it's like, oh, really? You know, somebody will ask me like, hey, do like your hardest card trick, and I'll do some very intricate trick, and they'll be like, oh, it was okay. But then I have like 2 or 3 that I gravitate to, and I'll do them. They'll be like, oh my God, it was amazing. And I'm like, bro, if you knew how easy that was, you know?
Yeah, right.
But the big thing, like sometimes I'll walk up to people and I can do, it's called a riffle, where you take the cards and you do this, you know, and you spring them
like an accordion,
a spring.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll just do that, and people are like, do that again, you know? And it was one of the hardest things I learned. I actually used to sit and do it, and you know, they'd fly everywhere and you'd have to pick them up. And part of being a magician is learning the 52 card pickup pretty quickly.
Right. Yeah.
I got to the point where I would sit on my knees in front of a couch and do it. That way, when they would until I got good at it. And when I joined the Navy, I didn't do it anymore. I had stopped doing magic. And one day somebody had a deck of cards, and I did a magic trick, and then people started like, oh man, like you should show him, and you should show him. And then I had a friend who wanted to get into it, and he started learning with me, and we started, we call them like jam sessions. Like he would come over to my house in Virginia and we would work on magic tricks and learn things. And he asked me, he said, why have you never like recorded any of this? I said, I was never really into doing any of that, like social media and podcasting and all this. And we were getting ready to go on a deployment, our first deployment to the Med. And he said, dude, what if when we were out, we went out and you did magic, I'll record it. And, then we can post it. We make a Facebook page, right? And you can say that you're on a Mediterranean tour, right? And he's like, because when we pull into the port, you can post that you're there. We just can't post that we're, going to OPSEC.
Right.
And I was like, yeah, like, let's do it. Right. So we would do stuff on the ship and we would record it. And then when we would have internet, like, you pull into a port and at night, you're getting dinner. Right.
Yeah.
And you have the Wi-Fi, and we're sitting here trying to get these videos uploaded. And I got the opportunity to do magic. Like on the ship to people was cool, but to be able to be in a different country or someplace famous and do a magic trick for somebody from that country was amazing. And it really made you kind of change how you do things. Because I'm not a silent magician. I'm not Shin Lim. I'm a talker. I like to play it up, like the amazing Jonathan, Penn and Teller, like some of my big, I like to kind of have some comedy in what I'm doing. 2 reasons. 1, if you mess it up, you can play it off and people think it's part of the act. And, and 2, I just like to do that. But when you're in another country and you don't speak their language or they don't really understand English, you have to figure out a way to do it. So I learned a lot too. And when you go on deployment on a small ship, we don't have MCs on board. Normally, which is a mass communication specialist, basically the person who's, doing all the videography and writing the stories and this and that. And when you go on deployment, they always send one with you though. Right. So on that deployment, I was a second class and we had this MC3, Green, and she had caught wind of it and wanted to write a story. And I was like, yeah, sure. Like interviewed me, and I was working with this Master Chief who was like learning, and interviewed him. And she wrote this story, and it's called maybe my second deployment. Yeah, second deployment. And I was dubbed the International Man of Magic in the Navy. It went out, when you're on deployment, they send that stuff out, right? And if the different Navy sites want to, they'll pick it up and put it out. But they also send it home in a 50-mile radius of where you're from.
Oh,
so like
cool.
Different local newspapers picked it up. And I was in like a few different papers here, and even in a few places I didn't even know where they were in Indiana. And it's really funny because my captain at the time, we used to make jokes all the time. I don't know why. This dude did not like magic. He hated it. he hated me. And I had
you sorcerers.
Oh man. I had this chief. He was an IC. He was not an IC, excuse me. He will kill me for saying that. He was an IT. We didn't have an FC chief at the time. He was our chief, and his last name's Rodriguez. I won't say his first name, but he man, this dude, when he found out I did magic, man, he was like, Dowdy, how come you didn't tell me you do magic, man? Like, you should have told me before I wrote your eval. I have 3 loves in life: my kids, women, magic. And this dude was a crack. Like he would make me come in the Chiefs mess. I'm a second class time, right? He made me come in the Chiefs mess, do magic tricks. That's how I got my ESWA signed off in engineering. This DCC be like, hey man, come to engineering, show me a magic trick. And then he would like pull people, be like, hey, teach him this stuff in science PQS. And and like Chief Rodriguez used to like to mess with the captain. And I'm like, Chief, please stop. Like, please stop. We did a ditz. He made me do a magic trick in front of the captain. And like the captain's like sitting here like writing like while I'm doing it. And I do this magic trick and like the whole division like apply. It was really good. And he just kind of looks up and he's like, it was okay. and he like left, and we're just like, oh my gosh, this dude hates me, especially because this story comes out, right? And we were over. This is when we launched those tomahawks into Syria. What was that? 2016.
Yeah,
14.
I was on shore. I just got to shore duty. Yeah, 14.
We were in the Persian Gulf. Actually, I was setting CSC at the time, and we got the call. We raced up there, you know, and I ended up setting my watch like 3 hours past my time because we were pretty much in an engagement. And he was so sure that we were going to launch. Like, we had extra flags up. He had video cameras set up. And then they ended up getting 2 ships on scene in the Med, which made more sense, right? But we were just there. And he was all about out there doing the work of the nation, right? Out there, you know. And this story about me being the International Man of Magic goes out, and it was on everything. Every Navy thing had picked it up. And, you know, he has to approve any of those stories that go off the ship, right? So I see him, everybody's like coming and be like, yeah, man, like your story's here. And I'm like, oh, cool. And I'm like, oh no. Cause I was like, the captain's gonna, right. And I'm in CSMC, and the captain comes in, and I'm like, oh no. And he looks at me, he's like, International Man of Magic, huh? I'm like, yeah, yes, sir. And I don't remember exactly what he said. I was like, well, sir, didn't you have to approve that story going off the ship? And he's like, yeah, I did. And then he walked away. Like, you could, but
you
like,
owe me one, you sorcerer.
Yeah. And like Chief Rodriguez like started like, oh my gosh, they were making up stories. He was making up stories about the captain, about magic. And I'm like, dude, you stop. Like, you are going to ruin my career. Like, there were stories floating around that he hated magic because as a kid, he had a magic kit and wanted to do magic, and his dad hated it or threw it away or something. And then there was another story that a clown did a magic trick to him, and it scared him for the rest of his life, and like all this stuff. And then, you know, the MCs, they put together, oh my God, they put together like videos and stuff while you're out to sea. So we put one together for kids that was the ABCs, and it was all like stuff, like Navy stuff. Mm-hmm. Well, they come to me and they're like, we want to do a magic one because of the captain. I'm like, no. They're like, yeah, let's do it. And they're like, we're not going to do M though. Like, we're not going to do magic. Okay. I was like, all right, well, what do you want to do? And we did L is for Liberty. And I'm in my space, and I had a playing card, and it was just like, I think it was like the Queen of Hearts. And I was like, L is for, snap my fingers, it said Liberty. And then I'm holding a card that says Liberty on it, and I'm not in my coveralls anymore. I'm in civilian clothes. Like, this was a camera trick. Yeah. Liberty. And that's a wonderful thing. And, you know, so then it's part of this big video that we're putting out. And of course the cap sees me. He's like, L, huh? I'm like, yes, sir. Yeah. He was a good sport though, because when I did my CSC board, well, after I went out and they delegated, he gets on the 1MC and he's like, combat systems casualty, away the magic response team, like, you know, just being silly. Yeah. So, but I got a lot out of that, and getting to do stuff, and the videos are out there, and I haven't done them in a long time, but there are a lot of people that do it, and I do it in high schools now for if I'm in a class with like, where it's not seniors, right? And I'm not maybe like freshmen or whatever, and I'm already there. So I'll do like some magic and talk about that. And, you know, you can just search International Man of Magic, Brad Dowden, and you can see the story that she wrote, and it's a good story. She did well with it. And, you know, I had business cards as a magician for a while, and it was after that. And somebody said, like, how did you not put International Man of Magic on there? And I'm like, I forgot. Like, you're right. Like, that's literally, there's a story. Like, that's the title of it, International Man of Magic. Yeah. And so cool to get.
But what's your name is the
Arcanin.
Oh, Arcanin.
Arcanin. ARCHAININ. Arcanin. And that's a name that I use for gaming and stuff. And it comes from the word archaic, which is an older word, and it literally means old fashioned. Game I played a long time ago, I had a character that was archaic something. And one day I just kind of made Arcanan, and it became it's a screen name and a username that I use for stuff, and it's my performing name is Arcanan.
Oh,
so
okay.
Yeah. Arcanan, the
yeah.
So,
international man.
I have a quick question for you though.
Yeah.
So you went and did this out in front of these foreign nations, the residents of
Mhm.
these foreign countries.
Mm-hmm.
You sound like you did your magic in several of them, correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
Where'd you get the biggest response? Which country sticks out in your head?
Man, it's so hard. We did it so many places. And the thing was that a few times it was like to our tour guide, and we're the only one.
Yeah.
Like when I was, okay, I'll give you the biggest reactions I got, and then my favorite place that I did.
Perfect.
The best reaction that I got was actually when we were in Croatia. We went to this restaurant after we went to this castle. We went to this castle, and I did a magic trick for our tour guide. He takes us to this restaurant. This restaurant had closed down. It was just us and a bunch of sailors, but the owner was there, and I did a magic trick for somebody. And then VJ, our tour guide, had talked to the owner of the restaurant, and he's like, hey, he wants you to show him a magic trick. He wants you to show his whole family. And I'm like, okay. They take me to like a back table room, and this guy, because they live there, right? Like they live above this restaurant.
Oh, okay.
He brings in his whole family, and he's like recording it, and like I do this magic trick, and they were just lit up, man. They loved it. Like they were recording it, and it was just one family, right? I had a ton of reactions other places, but that was probably my favorite and most genuine. Like, I'm in these people's business and home, and they want, it was super cool. And I had a lot of fun doing it. And then I did a few more in their restaurant in front of all the sailors, and they all always loved it. But I think my absolute favorite one was, let's see, in Romania. I think I'd sent you the video. We weren't supposed to go to Romania. We were one of the first ships into the Black Sea in a long time. We pull into Costanza, and it's in the fall. Romania is a pretty poor country. And quite honestly, I felt rich there because the money exchange was really good for us. And we had an opportunity to go to Dracula's castle, right?
Oh,
which
cool.
which is Bran Castle. And I'm like, just being a history buff, like, hey, I want to go do this. It was like a 6-hour bus ride, by the way.
Romania,
it's cool.
I didn't know Romania was that big.
Romania is huge. But it's cool because we stopped at a supermarket, and people were buying literally bottles of wine, and we were drinking on the bus. We were allowed to. So
that made the bus ride better.
Oh yeah. We get there, it's up on this hill, it's in the fall, but the countryside of Romania is actually, it's beautiful, right? We go up there, and we take the tour, and we find out, just a little history for you. Bran Castle, it never, the reason it's called Dracula's Castle is Bram Stoker, when he wrote Dracula, had modeled the whole story off of that castle in that area because he had seen it. But Vlad the Impaler, the guy that it's about, never lived there, never owned that castle.
Oh, wow.
He was only ever there once for like a month. He as a prisoner, right?
Huh.
Like I was like, wow, didn't know that. But that's the history of it. And I'm there, and I did a magic trick in the courtyard of Dracula's castle. Like, what professional magician can say they've done that? You know what I mean? Like,
true.
And we recorded it, and it's on there, and I did it to our tour guide. He was a great sport. He had that, he could speak English. He had a thick accent, and I used some dirt from a flower bed. And he said the best thing you could possibly say when you're at Dracula's castle. Because I said, hey, I'm going to use some dirt of Transylvania. Can I use some dirt out of the flower? I'll put it back. And he said, yes.
I'll put it back.
Well, because, that it's preserved. And
Right.
He said, yes, but know that it's cursed. And I'm like,
gosh.
yes, thank you. Like, you couldn't have said it better. And yeah, we got to record it and put this stuff up, and it was great. And even in the States, right, when we would pull into ports, and everybody, when you're overseas, you're going and seeing stuff. When you're in the States, like you might be seeing some stuff, but most of the time, like you're going to the bars and stuff and hanging out. And a lot of times we would go to the bars. And I didn't want to, just get trashed or whatever. Like people be drinking in the middle of the day, and I'm like, I don't want to do that. So I would go with them, and we would be in bars, and I would just go table to table, and I'd do magic for people, and people would. I can honestly tell you that I've made a lot of money doing it, but I'm not doing it for money. Like I don't, people would try to tip me and be like, oh, no, I don't work here. I'm just, just hanging out, whatever. And they'd be like, no, I insist. And so, once somebody insists, like, all right,
what can you do?
Yeah.
What can you do? Yeah. I did that in Fort Lauderdale, but the best one I ever did was recruiting school is in Pensacola, Florida. And anybody who's ever been there knows the Irish pub McGuire's.
Oh, I love that place. Yeah.
And it's awesome. Okay. I have a mug from there. It's awesome. If you ever get the chance, they have dollar bills. I think they have an insurance policy on it because it's like over $1 million or something like that.
Right.
100,000.
I was there in 2001, the first time I ever went there, and they had about 600,000 or 700,000 then. So I can't imagine.
Yeah. Okay.
It's probably gotten more.
People will sign dollar bills, and then you do that and you get to staple it. I mean, they're everywhere. It's insane. Well, they always have performers, different things. And one night I went with a bunch of buddies, and then another night I wanted to go back up there. Nobody wanted to go. So I went because I was going to go there to eat, and I was doing some magic, and this place was packed, right? This was on a Thursday. Yeah, it was on a Thursday because we were graduating Friday. It was the night before we graduated. And it was packed, and I was doing magic for a few people. Next thing I know, I had a massive crowd around me. They thought I was one of the performers. So I'm performing for this whole bar. People and it was testing too because I had people behind me. So it was really hard to do some of the stuff that I do. Ton of people. People were buying me drinks. People they bought my food, were giving me money. Like I was just there to have a good time. But the whole reason I went up there too is I wanted to go into the gift shop, and I wanted to get a shirt and like a mug before I left. Well, I got so caught up doing magic that the gift shop closed. So I'm like, man. So the next day I drove up there right when they first opened, and so that I could get this stuff before I had to leave Pensacola. And I go in the gift shop, and the girl was like, yeah, I told her what happened and that I had forgot because, they had this Irish wake drink, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I'm very familiar.
And if you have too many, you're not familiar.
Yeah.
Because the thing about Irish Catholics is and I can say this because my family, wherever you find 4, you're going to find a 5th. That's just what we do. So this is how we remember people. We drink. So you get to keep the cup, and I forgot it. I lost it. So I was telling the girl, and she goes, yeah, we can get you one. She goes, oh, you were the performer last night. This. I was like, oh yeah, and she thought that they had hired me. She thought I worked there. I'm like, oh no, this whatever, because as she was ringing up my stuff, she was giving me the employee, like the performer discount. And I'm like, oh no, I'm not employed through here. This. She goes, look, so many people were talking about you, like you can have the employee discount. I'm like, sweet,
if you insist again.
If you insist, like, so yeah, I mean, I can tell you that it's one of those things. I did to ask my wife to marry me. I did a magic trick because that's one of the first things that when we reconnected, because I knew her when we were like 15. When we reconnected, that's one of the first things I ever showed her was a magic trick. So that's how I asked her to marry me, was with a magic trick too.
Aww.
I made her engagement ring appear in a card box after taking a deck of cards out. So
that's cool.
That is cool.
But it's been cool. It's been really fun, and I got to do a lot of videos and stuff of magic. And the big thing is, I think when you're in the military, you're not a robot.
Right.
Yeah. There's a misconception. Like you get the opportunity. You still, yes, there's things we have to do, but you're still yourself. And I think especially the Navy, like we really want to show that. We want to show, like, look, if you have individual talents, like, the Navy will write stories about you. They'll do things for you. You get opportunities to do things, take advantage of it. Like, don't don't just think it's a 9-to-5 job, and really take advantage of the opportunities and the benefits that you get that you may have never thought of. Like, did I really think that I'd ever record magic videos in the Navy and get a story written about me and blah, blah, blah? Like, no. But if it wasn't for the Navy, I wouldn't have done that. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Oh, definitely.
So yeah, it's super cool, man. Super
Definitely,
cool.
man. That is cool, man. I can't believe I've never heard of it until now.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Well,
that
now
is-
everybody's heard of it.
yeah.
so
Now,
check it.
well, all of our listeners have heard of
all our thousands of listeners.
Worldwide.
it. Worldwide. We're gonna have to end the show because Jamie has an appointment.
Yeah. And
Okay.
speaking of recruiting, I have an interview. to
But
do.
please plug that wonderful podcast of yours again.
Yeah.
Behind the Helm.
Absolutely. Behind the Helm podcast. It's called Behind the Helm. Find it on YouTube, Twitch, Facebook. Find it, like, share, follow, hit the like button. Hit the like button, whatever platform you're watching this on. Help these two out, right? Make sure you hit that bell, get that subscribe so you know when they post something live. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or you're listening on Spot, like, look, go ahead and subscribe. Get them notifications. Do all that algorithmic stuff that helps us, people like us, get these words out. We don't have millions of dollars to advertise and be the top of search lists, but it's you guys, it's you, the listeners that help us get those words out to people, right? And you brought up the magic stuff, and I'll tell you all, if you go to Behind the Helm next Thursday, 4 p.m., I'll do one specifically on magic where I'll show some of my videos and stuff. And I really appreciate you guys having me on. And I appreciate you guys being part of it. I appreciate you playing for charity, Till Valhalla Project. We made that donation,
Yeah.
$110 to Till
Yep.
Valhalla Project. Make sure you check that out. Always come back here. E14 Podcast, The Sailor's Voice. There's some great episodes. Go back and look at the catalog of them. Same with Behind the Helm. Go back and look at the catalog of some of our stuff about different benefits and different stuff that we've done. And understand that but from Heath and Britt and myself, that we appreciate every single one of you that listen and watch and avidly wait for our new content. Yeah. I know there are
right.
people out there chomping at the bit.
Yes.
Well, thanks again. We just spent some time with a Navy chief, a Navy sailor, a podcaster, an international man of magic, Brad Dowden. Thanks, Brad, for joining us. We're going to close out, but stick around for a quick second. We're going to bullshit with you afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, guys.
And with that, we wish you
Fair winds.
and following seas.